Hello, thanks for checking out this beginner's guide to settlement survival. My name is Sarmate and I'll be walking you through how to get started and set up your town for success. This will include getting your basic supply chain set up and recommendations on what text to start with. The video will be broken down into sections, so if you're stuck on a particular aspect, you can go to see that section quickly. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something from this video. Okay, so here we are. We're going to place our town. This is where we're going to begin on the map. Some things to take note of as you are placing your starting location. You won't start off with very many resources, so you'll have to manually gather them first. So that means you're going to want to look for these dark rocks and these gray rocks here. That's iron and stone, and they're pretty important for a lot of buildings at the very beginning, so you want to get those close to your beginning town. You also want to look for a mountain. That's where you're going to be placing mines a little later on in the game. So the mines have to be built on the side of the mountain, so keep that in mind. Keep your eyes peeled for these little green guys that are all over the place. We have a couple that look like cows here. We got this little, it looks like a salt pile, and then there's a couple of leaves. You can see in the bottom of the screen right now, tells you what each of those things are. It's a 100% bonus to whatever the thing is. So the little volcano thing is a fertile soil point. So that means farms that are put there are going to be super duper really good. The little grass, which we don't have any on the screen here, is pastures. Hunting points are the cows. Little leaves are collection points. And then if there's little fish in the river, that's a good fishing spot. So let's put this guy right here. I like this spot because we are close to the hunting point. We got the gathering point, we got the rocks, and we got mountains. Everything's all right in here. So let's go ahead and drop it down. All right, right away, pause the game. And you can do that by hitting F1 or clicking this back arrow right here. See, everybody quits moving. Here we are with our settlers and very basic buildings. They are the builder's cabin, the storage yard, and the marketplace. The marketplace is essential to your regular houses. You cannot build houses outside of the marketplace's radius. So this big guy right here, you can't build any houses on this side until you have another market that's there. The market is what's going to distribute the goods to your citizens from your warehouses, so they're very important to your citizens. If you notice your storage yard right here, doesn't have a whole lot in it, right? So we fix this by going to the bottom of the screen and hitting our command on the toolbar. You could also use 0 if you like hotkeys. And then we have this collect resources button right here. So everything that you highlight, it's going to get picked up. So we see both rocks here. These are going to be reeds, and there's a couple other little things scattered around, and the wood as well. So let's go ahead and we'll just pick a hunk of land. You can always adjust this, so you can get all these tools that are above everything. But if you felt like you went too far, you got too many things, you can hit this cancel button, and then you can just highlight over the things that you want to keep, and they get fixed. So now that we have some resources selected, let's start the game. We started about 5, and then we want to do some houses. So we're going to do 7 houses. And we're going to do 7 houses because each house can deal with 4 people. If we look here in our statistics, or we can see that we have 30 inhabitants. So 4 times 7 is going to be 28. And then we are also going to be building a boarding house to accommodate the extra 2 people. Not where we could, of course, build just another house. We're going to use the boarding house because the boarding house is going to be great for future things. When we get immigrants that come into town, they will have a spot to be right away. So we don't have to worry about having a bunch of houses ready to roll for immigrants. They can just move into the boarding house until you're ready to put some houses down for them. The order of your houses doesn't really matter. There's a lot of really cool decorative stuff in this game. So take a peek at this and just try and think about, do you want to incorporate any of this in between your houses maybe, or just random decorations for the town to make it look a little bit more lively. So keep that in mind. You don't have to jam pack them all tight together like I did. This is just for the tutorial purposes. All right, now let's say you decided you didn't like where you put your houses or any other building. If you just deleted it now by going to this little pick guy, the command, and then hitting demolish structure, you're going to lose out on some resources. So one of the 3 things I suggest I'm getting for your development points to begin with are going to be under construction. And that's going to be material recycling, this first one, the sawmill for the second. The final one is going to be under logistics, and that's going to be warehouse, and we're going to grab the warehouse. These other 2 points, feel free to spend those wherever you think looks best. take some time and check out all the different development options you can go down. There's quite a few different varieties, and depending on, you know, what your game is like, you're gonna have to play with those and figure out which ones work best for you. So the reason why I chose the things that I chose, because I had mentioned demolishing structures, right? So we get that recycle one, that first one. That's going to allow us to get all of our materials back from demolitions. So if we have a building, we don't like it where it is, we can go and grab this tool, and you can see the little red dot that appears, and then you just click it, let go, and people will destroy that building and you get your resources back. The other thing that I chose was the sawmill, and we'll get back to that in just a little bit. And then the final thing was the warehouse. So you can see we got the storage yard, and I have a tendency to fill these guys up really quickly. So I chose the warehouse because they have more storage capacity, and I just think that they look better. I like that they're an actual building instead of just having goods out in the open like this. Okay, now that we've gathered a couple of materials, let's get some buildings in place. Now, there's quite a few buildings that we're gonna need right away here in the beginning, and they're gonna service all of the needs of your people right now. We're gonna have to expand on these and keep growing, and that's just the nature of the game. What helps me decide what to place is thinking what basic needs our people are going to have. So that would be food, water, shelter, heat, and clothes. But let's address the water first because it's a pretty simple one to deal with. Under the tree icon, third one here on the bottom, you can see we have well and big well. They're gonna do the same thing. The big well just has a little bit more capacity because it can hire 2 people to work there instead of just the one, like the regular well can do. We'll just stick this in the corner. The little arrows are the access points, so make sure that your buildings are on the road with that little access point. And where you put your big well doesn't matter as long as it's within the radius of the marketplace, because the people that are working at the well, which are called water fetchers, will bring the water to the warehouses, and then the marketplaces are going to go to the warehouses and then distribute the goods from there to all your people. As a reminder, as we're building here, we're using up stuff, so just grab another collecting resources and let's grab a swath of wood, basically, is what we're going to need the most of. So we'll do that, get that queued up. We do have a little bit left in our storage yard, but we're going to need a lot more, so let's get that working. And once this gets built, we'll check back in just a little bit. This is going to be the water fetcher. So if we go back up into our eye, we have these professions, and they all have names. So water fetcher is going to be from the well. Repairman is going to be from a building that we'll talk about in a little bit. Vendor is from the marketplace. Farmers are farms. Builders are builders. And laborers are just doing basic things around town, like chopping down trees and stuff like that. So we got our water taken care of. Let's go to food. I would suggest you start with a hunting cabin. And this can be found under the tree icon again. And here's a hunting cabin. And the neat thing about these is that they don't have a radius, so they'll go out and they'll find critters to go hunt, and they'll bring them back no matter where they are, which is super great. And it's going to provide you with several items. It's going to provide you with meat, the most basic, so whatever you're hunting is going to get you some meat, and then depending on what you're hunting is going to get you some leather. You see these little guys right here? These are alpacas. So once we get this built and they get hunted, you'll see that you have meat and then alpaca fur. And then you can take that alpaca fur and you use the tailor and make that into clothing. So winter is on its way. You can see at the top right here, we're in summer, fall, winter. So we need to get prepared for that winter. And so what we did to do that is grab the sawmill. So the water sawmill you can go on the riverbank. I don't really have a good spot here because of these weird angles to put this guy, but that's okay because we can use the sawmill. The difference is the water sawmill is a little bit more efficient. We'll go with the sawmill for now. It doesn't make that big a difference. All right, so we got our sawmill down, and what the sawmill is going to do is provide us with domestic fuel. Is going to be what the people use to burn in their houses to heat their homes in the wintertime. So we're going to need that for sure, because if you don't, people die of hypothermia, and then it's just no good. Okay, with our sawmill built, it's very important that you come in here and you see production. You have to choose which item to make. If you don't, this is going to sit here and not do anything and be a waste of time. So in this case, we want to grab domestic fuel, so I'll queue that up. You can use timber, which we're going to do because we don't have any poop yet. That's what this is, dried animal dung. Turns 30 into 5 domestic fuel. The sawmill is also cool because it can do planks. Things like the fishing dock use planks, so it's an important thing to have if you want to have fishing. Now the sawmill is great and all, but it's kind of pointless if you don't have any wood for it, right? So next thing we're going to work on is going to be our timber. So back under the tree, you're going to see the logging camp. We're gonna put this logging camp a little bit away from the town because you see that this radius of influence that this guy has, it's going to plant and harvest trees inside that radius of influence. So if you were to put that logging camp way down here, all of these spots where these houses are, that's a spot where a tree can't grow. So you're losing efficiency on the logging camp if you do that. And once this gets operational, they're gonna automatically harvest and plant trees, and it's just a renewable resource, and it just keeps going on and on and on. It's awesome. And you're gonna need a bunch of these throughout your town as you grow, and you're gonna need more and more wood. So it's just something to keep in mind. And the forester works at the logging camp. So if we go back here, statistics, you'll see we got the woodcutter from our sawmill, and then forester will appear in here once that's built. Okay, the next thing we want to check out is our clothing. So you can see here we have 70 rough clothes, and that's not a whole lot. You can decide if you want to go with a tailor at this point, which I would say you want to do because you're going to need clothes as soon as possible. And if you can get leather, so at our hunting cabin here, there's no leather because we've gotten goose. Goose don't have leather, but they do have alpaca meat and alpaca wool. So once we build our tailor, we can select the alpaca wool as our base item to make the goods out of. The tailor is going to be located under the hammer, and it's going to be the tailor's workshop. We're going to grab this guy and we'll just plop it over here. If you're playing and you see that your citizens are having a little red shirt icon above them, that means that they're out of clothes, and that means you're going to need probably more tailors, or you're going to need to open up tailors, or your tailors that you have aren't working correctly. So there's a lot of different materials that you can use with the tailor. It's a good idea to have more than one if you have a bunch of different sources of textiles. Okay, our tailor is built. We have the tailor's workshop. Got somebody working there. So now we need to choose our production, just like the sawmill. If you don't come in here and you don't choose production, nothing's gonna happen. So you can see our rough clothes. So that's a leather we have, wool, alpaca wool, linens, cotton cloth, and then textiles over here, rope and reeds, to make backpacks and straw shoes. So we have the alpaca wool. Let's get this guy started. So that says, hey, we don't have any of this. Once we get some more alpaca wool, it'll be brought over to here and it will start to be used to make the raw clothes. So that's the basics. So we got this food in the hunting cabin, we got the water in the well, we have the warmth with our sawmill, and we have clothes. Now these next items you can choose to hold off on if you wish, but I would suggest doing them right away because then you start to, you already have your stockpile that you started with, and this is going to keep feeding into your stockpile. The first thing we're going to talk about is going to be the blacksmith. The blacksmith is going to use stone and timber or iron to make tools. If your people are running around and you see that they have little hammers over their head that are red, that means you have no tools left. And this can be very bad. So you want to make sure that people have the tools that they need for their jobs. And just like the other couple buildings, this also has production. And again, you need to come in here and choose something. We have iron ore and stone. And since iron is a little bit harder to come by, we're going to go with stone. So we'll get the stone rolling in, and that means our tools are going to be replenished as they're being used, and we won't run out as long as this guy is producing enough to keep up with the demand. Next up, we're going to talk about the health of the town and the people. If you forget to add this into your town, the buildings will start to decay and eventually be destroyed. And the thing is going to be the repair shop. This is going to be found under this little Greek-looking building here on the bottom, and that's going to be the repair shop right here. We're going to put this in. And so what this guy does is it just makes sure that your buildings are maintained. So if we find one here that says maintaining does not consume raw materials, since these are in good condition, there isn't a bar that shows how damaged they are. But if you just let these go and you don't do a repair shop, they're going to get damaged, they're going to crumble. You can rebuild them for a time, and then eventually you have to totally start over and cut them down. That would happen with all your buildings. So you want to have this guy to make sure that the health of your town and your buildings are good to go. The next thing we want to worry about is the people's health. So one of the easiest, most beginning things to use is going to be the clinic. So we'll pop in a clinic over here, hook up that dirt road. This is going to be operated by a doctor, and they go there when they get hurt or sick. So you'll see a little broken arm, broken bone icon above the sick person's head. They'll walk over to here, doctor will take care of them, and they'll be good to go. And finally, let's address the citizens' happiness. The simplest way to do this is to build the church and a graveyard. So when people die, you're going to have the graveyard. That's going to give people a spot to go mourn, and that's going to help with your happiness. So let's get with the church, and we'll get the church plopped in here. And Just for theme's sake, we'll put the cemetery right by the church. The problem with the cemetery is it's got to be 8x8, so that spot isn't going to work. 8x8 minimum. So we'll do a 9x9 right there, and that's going to get built. The church is going to be operated by a cleric, and the graveyard doesn't take anybody to operate. It just has headstones once they get built. So these are important because if your happiness gets too low, your citizens will not reproduce. And when they don't reproduce, it's very, very difficult to grow your population. The only way to do so is when you have immigrants that come in, and they don't come in very often. So you want to make sure that your happiness is up there, and you do that with the church. And a little bit down the line, you can grab the brewery, and you can start making tequilas. And there we go, we got our church and our cemetery all good to go. So the 9x9 can deal with 28 tombstones over time, and the church doesn't have anything it's producing, so you don't need to worry about selecting anything in the church. It's really more of your industrial stuff that is going to be making stuff. Okay, just some general tips now. So a default, the game doesn't autosave until it's been an hour. So it's every hour that the game's going to autosave. If you want to adjust this, you hit escape, go to your settings, game settings, change your autosave timer right here, and you can adjust it to whatever you like. It goes to none, 60 minutes, 30, 20, and 10. Also, you can open and close employment positions at a variety of buildings, such as the hunter cabin. Use these to fine-tune your inventories. So you can see that we have job positions closed here, right? We have one person working. So if you hit this X, it's going to open up a spot. And since this is green, if it's gray, you can't do this. You can click this and it will put somebody in there. So where this person is coming from, if you hit I, or you can come up to statistics, you can see we have 13 laborers. So that means we could do that in 13 different spots, assuming that we have those spots to fill. You can also tweak this from here. All you have to do is hit these plus and minus buttons. You can see -1, lose our hunter, and it goes into our labor. Plus, takes labor away, puts it into the hunter. Quick and easy way to deal with stuff was this menu right here. This menu is also cool because if you go over here to your seeds and livestock, you can see all of the fun things that you are able to use in the settlement. So if I was to put a farm down, I could plant any of these things, or a pasture. I could raise alpacas and goose. And I would definitely, if I was going to continue this game, I would definitely do a pasture and raise those alpacas so we can continue to have that wool and continue to make the clothing. Always be watching your resources and adjust accordingly. If you are running out of food, employ more people to your hunter or other food production buildings. So all of these guys right up in here, you want to make sure that you have a good amount of food. Food's coming in, you got water. You want all these things to be good and healthy. You can check how good and healthy they are by going into your statistics, again, and checking your production overview. So you can see our current stock levels of food is at 115 and we produced 616. So we are not doing very well in our food production. So we would need a lot more food sources than just the one hunting cabin that we have now. So keep that in mind. You just gotta do the little quick math and make sure that you are producing more than you are using. And that's going to wrap it up. That's all my tips and tricks for beginning on settlement survival. I hope this was helpful to you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.